Have you ever lain awake at 3 a.m., your mind racing in circles, reliving old conversations, and rehearsing disasters that will never happen? There's a special exhaustion that comes not from work, but from the war inside your own head. We live in an age that worships complexity. Every app, every trend, every conversation is an invitation to analyze, compare, and doubt. But what if the true wisdom is not to know more, but to need less? William James, the father of American psychology, wrote, "The art of being wise is knowing what to overlook." He didn't say this to excuse ignorance. He said it because the truly strong mind is not the one that gathers the most, but the one that discards what doesn't matter. Why do you believe the next thought will save you? Why do you mistake worry for responsibility or analysis for control? Why do you trust your fears more than your own experience? Here's the truth. Most people drown in their own intelligence. They overthink until life becomes a puzzle with no solution. They analyze relationships to death, looking for signs that aren't there. They avoid mistakes not by action, but by endless hesitation. And that's the greatest mistake of all. If you want freedom, you must learn to act simply and let the rest go. Don't answer every doubt. Don't chase perfection in every detail. Don't give your mind permission to rule you. Let it serve you. Behavior patterns to watch. If you find yourself rereading old messages, stop and delete them. If you worry about what others think, ask yourself, will this matter in a week? A year? If you can't decide, flip a coin and trust yourself to handle the result. The reason most people stay stuck? They mistake movement for progress, thought for wisdom, caution for power. But the real key is simple. No one ever found peace by outsmarting life, only by living it, boldly and imperfectly. So here's your challenge, right now. Shut off your mind's endless commentary for 1 hour. Do something physical, something too easy for your cleverness. And discover what all great minds have known. Simplicity is the highest form of intelligence. Have you ever spent more time thinking about what to do than actually doing it? He remembered a day when a simple email sat unsent for hours. Not because it was difficult, but because his mind replayed every possible outcome, every potential criticism, every word that could be misread. By the time he finally hit send, he'd lost more energy to worry than the task itself ever required. William James wrote, "Action may not always bring happiness, but there is no happiness without action." He understood that overthinking is just another way of avoiding risk. We tell ourselves we're being careful, but really, we're letting fear disguise itself as wisdom. Why do we believe that if we prepare enough, nothing will go wrong? Why do we rehearse conversations in our heads 1,000 times, then still dread the moment they arrive? Why does waiting to be ready almost always mean doing nothing at all? If you're hesitating, send the message, make the call, say what you mean. If you're stuck between two choices, pick one and live with it. If you fear making a mistake, remember, indecision is the only mistake that always hurts. Notice where you check and recheck your work, your calendar, your words. Decide that today, you will do things well enough. Not perfectly, just done. Trust that you can clean up after yourself if you get it wrong, but you'll never get anywhere standing still. Why do most people fail here? Because doing is scary. You can be criticized for what you try, but you can never be judged for what you only imagined. Key principle from James. Act as if what you do makes a difference. It does. Life rewards the man who tries, not the one who only plans. So here's your step. Pick something you've overthought, big or small, and do it now, before your mind can talk you out of it. The fastest way to escape overthinking is through the door of action. You know that uneasy feeling before a tough conversation, or the way your stomach knots up just before you take a risk. He used to avoid those moments, skipped hard talks with his boss, let friendships fade rather than confront awkward truths, even let a relationship die slowly rather than admit it was over. Every time, he told himself he was keeping the peace. But inside, his anxiety grew louder. The problems never went away, they just waited. William James once said, "Be not afraid of life. Believe that life is worth living, and your belief will help create the fact." He realized courage isn't about silencing discomfort, but about acting while it's there. Why do we assume discomfort means something is wrong? Why do we let awkwardness dictate our choices, when avoiding it just creates more pain in the long run? If you're dreading a conversation, have it today. Say, "This feels awkward, but I want to be honest." If you avoid difficult feedback, ask for it first. If you feel nervous before trying something new, do it because of that feeling, not in spite of it. Notice where you let discomfort delay action. replying late to messages, piling up unread notifications, postponing decisions until the timing is better. Each time you act through discomfort, the fear loses power. Every time you wait, it grows. Why do most people stay stuck here? Because it's easier to dream of a painless life than to accept that growth is always a little bit painful. James's key principle: if you want equality, act as if you already have it. Bravery is built by behaving bravely, not by waiting to feel brave first. So your next step: do one thing you've avoided today while still feeling the fear. That's how real simplicity and real wisdom takes root. He once lost hours obsessing over a friend who stopped replying to his messages. Was it something he said? Did he miss a hidden insult? He scrolled through old texts, rewrote his replies, even asked mutual friends for clues. All that effort, but nothing changed, except his own mood, which got darker with every minute spent searching for answers he'd never get. William James wrote, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." He finally decided to let your subscription and comment aren't just numbers. They're signals that decide what video comes next. Share your thoughts or ideas in the comments. They often become the foundation for news stories. Interestingly, over 90% of viewers watch my videos without subscribing. That's okay. It means the content pulls you in. But subscribing helps you stay updated with the next parts. Hit subscribe, and let's create the next video together, the silence bee. Instead of writing a long, anxious message, he sent a simple, "Hope you're well," and moved on with his day. Why do we torture ourselves over what's out of our control? Why do we give away our peace of mind to situations or people that may never explain themselves? Why do we believe closure always has to come from someone else? When someone pulls away, resist the urge to chase. Give space, wish them well, and return your energy to what you can influence. If your mind replays the same doubt, consciously choose a new thought. If it's important, it will return. If not, I am free. Practice letting small mysteries remain unsolved. Your sanity is more important than perfect clarity. Notice when you're spiraling over someone else's silence, a missed opportunity, or an unanswered message. Make a rule: one gentle follow-up, then let it go. Why do most people get stuck here? Because the mind craves closure, but life rarely gives it on demand. James's principle: acceptance of what has happened is the first step to overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. Question for the audience: have you ever wasted days or weeks chasing an answer you never got, from a friend, a partner, a boss? What did it cost you? And if you could go back, what would you choose to let go of sooner? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is move on, even when you still want an explanation. Have you ever opened social media just for a minute and, an hour later, felt worse about your entire life? He knew that spiral too well. He'd scroll past friends' job promotions, exotic vacations, perfect relationships, and suddenly his own achievements felt smaller, his life duller. He would set bigger goals, chase validation, and forget everything he actually valued. The more he compared, the less he lived his own life. William James wrote, "Compared to what we ought to be, we are only half awake." He realized he'd been sleepwalking through his days, measuring his happiness by the highlight reels of others. Why do we let strangers define our standards? Why is it so easy to forget our own wins when someone else's look shinier online? Why do we punish ourselves for not keeping up with dreams that were never ours to begin with? When you catch yourself comparing, ask, what do I really want, if no one is watching? Limit social media to a set time. Then go do one thing that makes your life better, not just your feed. Celebrate your own progress, no matter how small. Keep a victory list for yourself, not for the likes. Notice when you scroll without purpose or chase trends that don't actually matter to you. Make a rule: when you feel envy, use it as a signal to work on your own goals, not as an excuse to feel less. Why do most people get stuck here? Because comparison is easy. Living your own story is hard. James's principle: believe that life is worth living, and your belief will help create the fact. If you focus on your own path, you make it more real, more rewarding, more alive. He'd always prided himself on having a plan: 5-year goals, color-coded calendars, backup strategies for every scenario. But then, all at once, life unraveled. His company downsized, the apartment deal collapsed, and the girl he'd pictured a future with suddenly said she needed space. At first, he panicked. His mind raced to fix everything, to restore order, to get back on track. He lost sleep searching for solutions, replaying every decision, blaming himself for things he couldn't control. The harder he tried to force life back into his old blueprint, the more out of control he felt. William James wrote, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." It struck him. Maybe the problem wasn't the broken plans, but his need for certainty. Life isn't a puzzle you can solve with logic and hard work alone. It's a river that changes course, whether you're ready or not. Real wisdom isn't about forcing the world to match your expectations, but learning to pivot when the road disappears. He asked himself, why do we cling so desperately to control, even when it makes us miserable? Why do we measure ourselves by the plans that failed, instead of the new possibilities they create? It wasn't easy, but for the first time, he allowed himself to grieve what was lost, and then asked, what's still in my hands? He chose to do what he could that day, no matter how small. Call an old friend, update his resume, go for a walk to clear his mind. Little by little, the panic faded, and the horizon returned. He realized that what matters most is not whether the plan survives, but whether you do. Wiser, more flexible, open to the detours that shape you. He used to think that being smart meant saying yes to every opportunity, every invitation, every favor. He prided himself on being the go-to guy, helpful at work, always available for friends, never letting anyone down. But over time, his energy was scattered, his own goals fell behind, and resentment crept in. Every yes came with a hidden price. William James wrote, "The art of being wise is knowing what to overlook." He finally understood, wisdom isn't about doing more, but about choosing what matters and letting the rest go. Why do we fear disappointing people? Why does it feel selfish to set boundaries, even when we know we're burning out? Why do we equate being good with being endlessly available? One week, a friend asked for help moving again. He had a deadline at work, but almost said yes out of habit. This time he paused. He realized that saying yes would mean sacrificing his own priorities for someone else's comfort. He took a breath and replied, "I wish I could, but I have to focus on something important right now." He felt guilty, then strangely relieved. That single no started a ripple effect. He began to protect his evenings, to focus on the work and people that really mattered. The fear of letting people down faded, replaced by the satisfaction of showing up more fully for what he truly valued. He once thought that being truly intelligent meant getting everything right. No mistakes, no mess, no need to ask for help. He double-checked his work, replayed conversations, apologized for tiny errors no one noticed. He was praised for being reliable, but inside he was tense, afraid of letting anyone, especially himself, down. But life has a way of humbling even the most careful planners. One day, a project he'd managed for weeks fell apart because of a tiny oversight. He waited for blame, for disappointment. Instead, his boss shrugged and said, "That's how we learn. Let's fix it and move forward." For the first time, he saw that mistakes weren't proof of failure, but steps toward wisdom. William James wrote, "Our errors are the portals of discovery." He realized perfectionism is just another prison, one that keeps you from trying, from learning, from growing. True strength is found in the courage to be imperfect, to make errors, to own them, and use them as tools for becoming better. Why do we fear mistakes so much? Why do we hide our flaws, instead of seeing them as evidence that we're moving, living, evolving? Why do we hold ourselves to standards that suffocate our creativity and joy? He started to change his approach. When he made a mistake, he named it and asked, "What can I learn here?" He encouraged his friends to share their mess-ups, turning shame into laughter and growth. He forgave himself for moments of awkwardness, knowing they were just part of the journey. He discovered that wisdom is not about being flawless, but about being flexible, willing to adapt, to apologize, to try again. He used to believe that intelligence was proven in grand gestures, career achievements, big decisions, once-in-a-lifetime adventures. But as the years passed, he noticed something strange. His most peaceful, meaningful moments were small. Morning coffee on the balcony, laughter with friends over nothing at all, the quiet pride after finishing a simple task well. The more he chased the extraordinary, the emptier he felt. The more he paid attention to daily joys, the richer his life became. William James wrote, "The greatest use of life is to spend it for something that will outlast it." He understood now, legacy isn't always about making history. Sometimes it's about the way you show up for everyday life, the kindness you offer, the presence you bring, the gratitude you feel for simple things. Why do we overlook the magic in the ordinary? Why do we chase more when what we truly need is often right in front of us? Why do we believe that meaning must be earned instead of noticed? He started a new practice. Each day, he named 3 small things he appreciated, no matter how trivial. He made time for rituals that grounded him: a walk, a call to his mother, cooking dinner without distractions. He found beauty in the mess. Dishes in the sink meant a meal shared. Tired eyes meant a day well spent. He realized that real wisdom is less about what you accomplish and more about how fully you experience the moments that make up your life. In the end, he realized the journey wasn't about outsmarting life, but about learning to live it, one honest step at a time. He saw that every part of his story, the restless overthinking, the plans that fell apart, the mistakes, the quiet days, had been pointing him to a deeper kind of intelligence. Not the intelligence of complexity, but of clarity. Not of knowing everything, but of seeing what really matters. William James wrote, "Act as if what you do makes a difference." It does. He knew now. Being wise isn't about always having the right answer, but about daring to act, to adapt, to choose simplicity over struggle whenever possible. So he kept his new habits close. When his mind raced, he anchored himself in action. When perfectionism crept in, he welcomed mistakes as teachers. When life felt ordinary, he searched for magic in the details. He learned to say no without guilt, to let go without regret, and to keep his focus on what he could truly influence: his own attention, his own attitude, his own actions. Most people spend their lives tangled in worries and expectations, waiting for some grand moment of clarity. But true wisdom comes quietly, in the small choices you make every single day. What's the simplest change you could make this week that would bring you more peace or clarity? How might your life improve if you acted on it today, instead of overthinking it? Share in the comments. Because sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is to keep it simple and just begin. Thank you for following this journey. Your story of simple wisdom might be the spark for someone else's transformation.